Thank you very much. I'll start with the abstract. I'll just be reading through my paper. My paper is entitled Law, Religion and Ecological Issues, a Theological Approach. It's more of a biblical approach. In this paper, I endeavor to explore how legal policies and religion, in particular Christianity, may intersect in an effort to address ecological issues. In a world characterized by panic due to the impending ecological decline and crisis, there is need to combine forces to save our planet and conserve its livability. Many will agree that governments of the world have designed legal policies on environmental conservation and the reduction of greenhouse emissions. Despite all the efforts, the status of the ecosystem continues to decline at an alarmingly fast rate. From a theological perspective, I intend to analyze the Botswana legal policies on environmental issues alongside biblical perspectives on the same and map a way forward. My conviction is that together, that is both the legal system and the religious, in our case, Christian communities, can stand together to fortify efforts to deal with ecological predicaments and perils facing the 21st century world citizens. The Christian church needs to take seriously biblical messages concerning environmental conservation and perhaps place them on the same pedestal as messages of salvation, prosperity, and blessings. I will suggest that sermons, crusades, and the like devoted to environmental conservation, extrapolating on biblical and legal issues, will be in order in this era of undesirable climate change, global warming, and ecological degradation. 21st century inhabitants of the world are faced with the threat of an impending ecological crisis and possible collapse of the planet Earth. There is an increasing questionable livability of the Earth in the not so far off future. As Mutrubani and Van Wyk tellingly assert, climate change phenomenon is a global concern which threatens the sustainability of livelihoods of the majority of the population, especially in developing countries. In the same vein, Mark Edwards and others also maintain that there is a growing global environmental crisis with profound implications for the long-term viability and welfare of natural environments and human social and economic systems. Consequently, issues of ecological nature are progressively taking center stage in many meetings, workshops, and seminars throughout the world. This in itself is indicative of the seriousness of the imminent ecological decline that is happening at an alarmingly fast speed, overtaking efforts to halt or reverse the same. The question is whether we, citizens of the world today, are doing enough to change the course of things. In this essay, I endeavor to suggest that there is need to combine forces and to act in solidarity as humanity, bringing together especially legislative measures and religious perspectives to further fortify efforts to curtail what is evidently a global crisis of extreme magnitude. Botswana will form the basis of my context, or the context of my discussion, so that it is relevant and within the parameters of real life of the author or the researcher, myself. My conviction is that because ecological decay issues affect all inhabitants of the earth across continents, everyone in their little corner needs to participate in the efforts to bring about a solution. I will tackle my discussion in three ways. One, I will analyze the efforts made by the Botswana government in terms of the legal policies on environmental conservation. Two, consider selected biblical texts on the same. And three, explore how the above two may be brought together to strengthen efforts to bring about change in individuals and communities regarding behaviors that may be adopted in order to achieve a solution to the problem. Botswana legal policies on environmental conservation and overview. Governments of the world are under extreme pressure to address ecological issues in the face of global warming resulting from greenhouse emissions. Botswana has not been left behind in this, as she has designed policies and legislations on environmental conservation. The Botswana's Vision 2016, it is stated that in the year 2016, economic growth and development in Botswana will be sustainable. Renewable resources will be used at a rate that is in balance with their regeneration capacity. The wildlife of Botswana will be managed for sustainable benefit of the local communities and in the interest of the environment as a whole. By the year 2016, Botswana will have taken strong measures to limit pollution that would otherwise have resulted from rapid industrialization. It is clear from the above excerpt that Botswana has incorporated ecological concerns in her long-term vision as a country. In the year 2016, Botswana will turn 50 years since her independence, and the vision indicates that the aim is to have achieved strong measures to limit pollution and to ensure environmental welfare generally. With just a few months before the year 2016, one wonders whether that vision is anywhere near accomplishment or not. From my personal observation, as a citizen and resident in Botswana, the vision with regard to environmental protection is not so close to being actualized. In the last few years, we have experienced as a country drastic changes with undesirable effects on our environment and threatening the livability of our country. It is noteworthy that there has been lack of rainfall, extreme adverse weather conditions that the country has experienced, and that this year, 2015, we have witnessed drought of higher magnitude, leading to the drying up of the Gaborone Dam. Water has now become a rare and scarce commodity, especially in the city of Gaborone and its neighboring countries, villages and towns. This is not surprising, as previous studies indicate that Africa, and in particular Sub-Saharan Africa, a region to which Botswana is part, is likely to be negatively affected by climate variability and change. Frequent natural disasters such as droughts, floods, agricultural systems that depend heavily on rainfall have been cited among factors that give rise to Sub-Saharan Africa's vulnerability. The state of affairs needs immediate attention. Everyone alive needs to get involved in ensuring that the status of the ecosystem stops declining any further. When searching for Botswana's policies and laws on environmental issues, I came across a document titled Botswana's Profile on Implementation of the Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration. It is stated that the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development was adopted by 178 countries, including Botswana. This was at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration states that environmental issues are best handled with the participation of all citizens at the relevant level. At the national level, each individual shall have access to appropriate information concerning the environment that is held by public authorities, including information on hazardous materials and activities in their communities, and the opportunity to participate in decision-making process. States shall facilitate and encourage public awareness and participation by making information widely available. Effective access to judicial and administrative proceedings, including redress and remedy, shall be provided. According to the report, every person must be an active participant in environmental issues. Governments and authorities throughout the world must ensure that information on the status of the environment is widely available and easily accessible to individuals and communities. The question is, how much is Botswana doing to ensure she achieves her Vision 2016's aim to have minimal pollution and sustainable development that would result from environmental sensitive use of natural resources? Are there any laws pertaining to environmental justice? In the Botswana's profile on the implementation of the Rio Declaration's Principle 10, there are certain issues important for my study. The report says that under the Bill of Rights, there is no specific law relating to the right to environment. However, the report contends that the absence of no specific right or freedom to the environment does not mean there is no protection at all. Apparently, environmental considerations are subsumed under more wider and general rights. Toteng argues that while Botswana has been acclaimed to be one of the Sub-Saharan Africa's most liberal democracies and sustained growing economies, Botswana has not done well in managing environmental problems in the country, and particularly in urban areas. Toteng blames the failure on what he calls the state's domination of environmental agenda. The problem is further perpetuated by lack of documentation on environmental issues in the country. However, in the Botswana's profile for the implementation of the Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration, one finds provisions of selected environmental legislation. These range from those that regulate the resource conservation and exploitation on dealing with waste management, water and air pollution. I will now summarize the provisions in order to better understand Botswana's legal or legislative measures. In 2005, Environmental Assessment Act was passed. According to the Act, activities that are likely to have adverse effects on the environment are subjected to that Act. Public involvement is encouraged in that a person can take legal action where their rights are violated or threatened by an environmental activity. AI integrates socio-economic goals, scientific facts, social values, and ecosystem consideration. Assessment is done before any development plans can be voted upon by planning authorities. AI therefore provides a preventative approach to curbing environmental harm. The Act has been summarized as follows in the profile. Provide environmental impact assessment to be used to assess the potential effects of planned developmental activities. Determine and provide mitigation measures for effects of such activities as may have significant adverse effects on the environment. Put in place a monitoring process and evaluation of the environmental impact of implemented activities, and provide for matters incidental to the foregoing. From the preceding discussion, it is evident that efforts are being made to put in place legal measures aimed at environmental protection. The AI is particularly important as it theoretically provides screening services to planned activities before they can be implemented. However, the issue is whether in practice such screenings do take place. Is the public aware of such an act? There is evidently a need for the participation of the public. I will now move on to biblical references. It is very clear that while Botswana may have all these things written down, in practice there is not much going on. The public is not aware of these things and everybody just does what they want. And as you move around town, you find cars smoking and people throwing rubbish everywhere. And it's quite clear that the public, the people that matter, the people on the ground have no idea as to how to preserve the environment. I will now move on to biblical references on environmental protection. This is aimed at finding out how religion, in particular Christianity, may offer insights in the light of impending ecological crisis. Studies indicate that in recent years, debates have intensified about the relationship between religions, cultures, and environment. My quest is to investigate whether Christianity as a religion, whose sacred text is the Bible, can play some role in helping humanity to use natural resources in ecological friendly and sustainable ways. It is worth noting that studies have been done and debates are continuing to take place in the area of religion and ecology. The Bible has been and continues to be explored in this regard. For instance, the Earth Bible Project, which was initiated in Australia some few years ago. The international project's aim have been listed as follows: to develop eco-justice principles appropriate to an earth hermeneutic for interpreting the Bible and for promoting justice and healing the earth. To publish such interpretations as contributions to the current debate on ecology, ecoethics, and eco-theology. To provide a responsible forum within which the suppressed voice of earth may be heard and impulses for healing earth may be generated. From the aims of the Earth Bible Project listed above, it is clear that the Bible has proven to be resourceful with regard to environmental concerns. Volumes are being published regularly on earth reading perspectives, and scholars from different subdisciplines of theology are continuing to engage the Bible in ecological interpretation. For instance, there is ecofeminist theology of Rosemary Radford Ruder and others, queer ecofeminism, eco-womanism, and the list goes on. The paper will focus on examples of text from the Bible that echo ecological messages. If we were to begin with the book of beginnings, namely Genesis, we will agree that right from the start, the Bible speaks an ecological language. In the book of Genesis chapters 1 to 2, we are confronted with the narrative of the creation of the cosmos. God interacts with a formless, empty, chaotic space. It is stated that God began to speak things into being, and that at the completion of everything he created, God saw that it was good. One can safely conclude that God loves his creation, human, animate, and inanimate. Reading the first 10 verses of Genesis 1 with an eco-sensitive eye, one finds that it teaches and promotes environmental friendly behaviors in all created things. The idea that the Creator was thrilled at every stage during the creative activity, and especially that every created being beams with goodness, is a pointer in the right direction. It cautions us to reflect on our activities as we journey in life and ponder whether we are not interfering with the goodness in and of other created things around us. Whether they are human, non-human, it doesn't matter. Without expounding much on the creation account, it is noteworthy that the Bible intends from the start that human beings should respect all of creation, for the Creator is infinitely in love with creation in its entirety. Throughout the Bible, we find references to God's creation, and when creation is mentioned, we hear echoes of ecological preservation. Some of the Psalms are known as Psalms of creation, and they, like Genesis, point to a creator who is connected with creation and fellowships with it. For instance, as astutely pointed out by Diane Begant, Psalms 8 contains the same themes as found in Genesis, namely royalty, preeminence of humanity over animals, and so forth. It is important to note that some biblical themes have taken the blame for humanity's subjugation and exploitation of the earth and its resources, leading to the imminent ecological crisis. For example, Kebaneilwe has noted interestingly that some of the Hebrew vocabulary used in Genesis 1 and 2 regarding the mandate given to the humans at the end of creation is quite problematic. An example is the Hebrew term kabash, dominion, or to make subservient, and worse still, to violate or rape, as well as rada, to subdue. The word kabash, which is dominion or rape or violate in that regard, the word seems to be at the center of patriarchy and perhaps at the heart of every structure of domination. Because of the limited scope of this paper, I will not go into issues of patriarchy and domination in the biblical text, for though it is apparent in the examples given here, it will require a project on its own. As already mentioned earlier, there are quite a number of texts throughout the Bible that may be read from an earth-friendly or ecological perspective. I will now list a few more examples before exploring a possible intersection between legal policies on environment and biblical ones. The examples include the following: Psalm 104, 148, Jeremiah 4, Isaiah 35, Jonah 4:8, Matthew 6, Romans 8. The list cannot be exhausted here. Law, religion, and ecology, a marriage of convenience. I have noted that in writing this paper, I was propelled by the conviction that in the face of impending ecological decline and crisis, the answer lies in combining forces. My proposal is that, brought together in one sermon, legal policies and biblical texts on ecological matters may prove a powerful tool in addressing the ecological predicament that the 21st century citizens of the world are faced with. I've used Botswana as a case study to highlight some of the legal policies that exist in an effort to participate in the global struggle to curb, minimize, or better still, halt the alarming ecological decline. I've noted that as a country, Botswana has something in place, but that is not enough. I've noted also that the EA legal policy is well intended, but is too limited. However, the discussion has indicated that public awareness and participation is quite questionable. The public doesn't seem to know what is going on. I will conclude by saying that information dissemination is very important. You know, it is stated in the Rio Declaration's Principle 10 that everybody needs to get involved and all that. But as noted in the discussion, Botswana government seems to, have the policies on environment as the government's own baby, and the rest of the people, the rest of the communities are not, there is not enough information being disseminated on ecological issues, and there is therefore very little participation of the public. And these are the people who matter, because these are the people who use the environment in any way and in anyhow, because they just don't know what is going on. And despite all these negatives that we are experiencing as a country, where water has now become a luxury, we can go for weeks and weeks without water. And nobody knows why, but it's all because we are not taking care of the environment. There's so much pollution going on. People burn things whenever they want, and even though there's something in the books about against such activities, the people are not aware, and the law is not being enforced, to curb all these environmental problems. Thank you.